Hey everybody, I apologize. We're just a couple minutes late due to some technical difficulties, but we are here and we are filming a live Facebook broadcast for Punished for Protecting. This late afternoon we have Paul Griffin as promised. He is the legal director of Child Justice Incorporated. Paul is on with me by telephone. So I'm going to just have you all say hello to Paul, and Paul say hi to you.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, Paul. Thank you for being with us. So, Paul, would you like to just tell us, first of all, to tell the viewing audience, you are in fact an attorney as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. I've been an attorney for the last 20 years.
Okay, wow. And so tell us a little bit about Child Justice Incorporated and what you do.
Absolutely. What we do, Child Justice, and I've been involved with Child Justice since its inception about 3 years ago. And prior to that, I was involved with Justice for Children, which is the predecessor organization of Child Justice. I've been doing these cases for 15 years now. What we do, we provide a niche that we see that's very unsupported out there. We represent what we call protective parents. Those are parents, usually mothers, but occasionally fathers, but usually mothers, who are in cases involving either domestic violence, child abuse, or child sexual abuse, or unfortunately combinations of all three of those. And we represent them generally in custody cases in which those issues are raised. And as I'm sure a lot of your viewers realize, those are difficult cases. Most people think they would be easy. You go and you tell a judge that you have an abusive parent, and the judge would say, oh my, we must protect this child and keep away from abusive parents and give it to the protective parent. But as we all know, that's more often not how things play out. So we specialize in taking these cases on ourselves, and we try to place them with pro bono representation with other law firms, and we help work with those attorneys who will take first chair on them, help them with some of the specialties in this case, special motions, dealing with the experts, trying to exclude bad evidence, trying to get in tough evidence, and how to educate the court on this very, very serious and important topic. I hope that wasn't too long-winded of an answer.
No, that was very good. I'm going to also ask the viewing audience that if you guys have any questions for Paul, please put your questions in, and I will try to get them answered. Also, Paul, can you tell everybody where you're located and what do you handle? Just certain counties and states, or is it, specific?
Sure. We're headquarters in Washington, D.C. We have two offices, one in Washington, D.C. and one in Baltimore, Maryland. My personal office is in Baltimore, Maryland. We handle we handle, as far as direct litigation goes, mostly in Maryland, some in D.C. and some in Virginia. But because we're right now operating under a grant for the Maryland government, under that grant, our case is going to be Maryland-based. We're much more heavily focused in Maryland, but we do D.C. and Virginia. But we also advise a lot of cases throughout the country. We've gotten calls from attorneys and protective parents. I couldn't even list the states from all over the country.
Right.
And the issues are all the same everywhere, while there's quirks in the law that are different. The general gist of the law is generally the same in most places. There's always tweaks and twists that are different, exclusive to a state. So we try to advise the best we can on how to keep out either bad evidence, junk science evidence, or how to get in tough evidence that's very compelling for the court to hear. But we don't actually litigate ourselves. We won't try a case. I don't try cases outside of. I'm only licensed in Maryland and District of Columbia, and I've been especially admitted in Virginia. But other than those three jurisdictions, that's where I personally practice.
Okay, I see. We're seeing an epidemic across our nation, which I believe is one of the main reasons why so many, literally millions of parents. We're all actually in shock because everybody thought they were alone. Then they found out they were surrounded by hundreds. Then they found out it was thousands, then tens of thousands. Now we're finding out that it's actually millions of parents, which actually is encouraging because the Army is finally banding together and saying enough. But so is this something that you've been experiencing yourself then, that this is actually an outrage?
Oh, it is. I can't tell you the number of times we get a call from a parent who's experiencing this, and it's like they're reading from the same script. And I don't mean that in a sarcastic sense; they're not being scripted. But they're telling us about the movie we've all seen 100 times. You know, the husband did this, and the child said this, and the doctors told me I should do that, and I went to the court, and the judge yelled at me and took my kid away, and then either guarded ad litem didn't believe me and called me. I mean, just the same story over and over again. So I think an epidemic is not too strong a term. It's a serious problem. You know, and it's kind of like the old joke that, you know, 10 million Elvis fans can't be wrong. Well, you know, a million protective parents can't all be crazy. You know, I mean, this stuff is actually happening.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I like what you just said. A million parents can't all be crazy. A million parents have been accused of being crazy, and yet I do the interviews of a million parents, and when I speak to these people, there's no finding of unfitness. There's no literal unless there's something that's been falsified, there's no literal finding of any mental illness that would cause danger to their children, other than most of them have post-traumatic stress disorder, which is caused by the court abuses. But they're not finding, you know, we have a lot of credible doctors and psychologists, and they're finding these parents to be 100% fit. Matter of fact, enduring extreme pain and suffering and still maintaining a fit life. It's heartbreaking to see. So if the parents are suffering this badly, what about these children?
Well, these children are obviously the ultimate victims in multiple ways. If they're not being themselves physically or sexually abused, and often they are, they've seen a parent be abused, and now we're seeing the science on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, and what that does to a child. And, you know, I've heard judges and others say too often that children are resilient. And there's truth to that, but resilience and uninjured are not the same thing. I mean, these kids are if they're not being abused, they've been exposed to violence, and then if they are placed with an abuser who's either abusing them or to abuse their other parent, and especially if they're being denied access or reasonable access to their other parent or protective parent, again, usually the mother, not always, but usually the mother, that the scarring and the damage that has to be inflicted on these kids is horrific. I mean, what they're being told indirectly by the system is that abuse is okay, abuse is normal. The support system that is here is not designed to help, save, or protect you. In fact, will do what it can to harm you by turning you over to a dangerous person. That's exactly not the message we want to be sending to young kids and what they grow up with. You can imagine that a lot of them grow up to be troubled themselves, either become abusive or get an abusive relationship. Unfortunately, you know, we have stories of drug use and self-injury, cutting and burning, and other self-inflicted injuries, which is very typical of children who have either suffered abuse or been highly exposed or excessively exposed to abusive behavior. So there's multiple victims. I mean, these protective parents have lost access to their child, or at least, you know, custody of their child, if not complete access or restricted access to their child, because many of them have supervised visitation, and the children themselves are being injured physically and emotionally, not directly and indirectly, like I said, by being exposed to this type of environment where they've seen their father smack their mother around and get away with it and be rewarded with custody later on. Yes, absolutely. It's awful.
Absolutely. Now this is a loaded question, and you don't have to answer this question if you can't. But the loaded question is, why are they doing this?
That's a great question. It's not loaded. There's a lot of reasons. I think most courts, your average person, it's easier. I mean, think about it for a second, and particularly in the cases of sexual abuse of a child, which, by the way, is extraordinarily difficult to prove. There's seldom evidence, particularly if it's intra-family sexual abuse, not, you know, stranger rape, where there might be violent acts happening. But if there's an allegation of abuse and there's no real evidence other than the child's statements and its behavioral issues, which the judges can very easily discount, it's so much easier for a judge and anyone else that matter to believe that mom is making this up or lying or is distraught than it is to believe, my God, this father really is sexually abusing his child. I mean, we don't want to believe that. So when you get in the sexual abuse of a child area, that's one of the driving forces. I'm convinced it's just so much easier to believe that someone is lying than it's actually happening. But there's other reasons. If you're dealing with an abusive person in domestic violence, people who are not haven't been exposed to it themselves kind of have an image of the Stanley Kowalski character from Streetcar Named Desire. And the guy comes in with the proverbial wife-beating T-shirt, kind of knuckle-dragging, mouth-breathing type of person. That cliche that I guess might actually be out there, but it's not actually an accurate portrayal. If you're dealing with a domestic violence person who is a sociopath or extremely narcissistic who's really good at this, and I don't mean a guy in the roof with a rifle type sociopath. I mean a person who has sociopathic tendencies who's not necessarily criminal for the abuse areas. They present very, very well. They do a very good job sucking people in, getting them to believe their story, coming across as very compelling. So you have that. Okay? Then you have on the other side, you have a mom, usually a mom, who is a normal person, who was married and presumably at one time loved this person she was married to, and finds out either he's sexually abusing their child or he's now beating her, and some of her world is falling apart around her. Particularly she discovers that the man she once loved is sexually abusing their daughter. I mean, just imagine your whole world being turned upside down. At the same time, this person's going to the system, going to Child Protective Services, and getting met with great skepticism. Particularly if it's a custody case, they'll say, "Oh, well, this is a custody case. We're going to let the custody courts handle this. This mom might be lying," and they don't do what. Then they get a judge who sees a mom who's not coming across very well in court because she's freaking out, for lack of a better term, by what's happening to her and her child. And they see a dad who presents very well. And then you add to that a little background with a family court. Your average family court case that your average judge sees is a deadbeat dad who has paid child support. I mean, that's a lot of cases right there where they're dropping the gavel on a guy who hasn't paid child support. And now they have a case in front of them where they have this dad who presents very well, when they have this mom who doesn't present very well, and there's no evidence, particularly with child sexual abuse case, that there's no real evidence of child sexual abuse other than child statements that the judge convinced the mom and coached the child of. And you have a dad who stands up and says, "I want my kids. I want to take care of my kids." This judge is so happy to see a dad like that, as opposed to the deadbeat dads they've been dealing with in court, that they'll gladly give custody to this father over this mother who they think is distraught, who comes across as because of PTSD or other understandable reactions to the system that she's having, comes across not well. And because you will have too many mental health experts who really do not know what they're talking about, quite frankly, who testify in court that the mother maybe has a personality disorder, which really is just PTSD or something else. They'll say it's better for this child not to be exposed to the mother except perhaps in supervised settings. So that's how the system plays so many times. I don't necessarily think, other than the fathers themselves, that there's a bunch of nefarious plots out there driving this, but it's like a script.
Well, I mean, I have to say, I think that what's happened, and I found this out through my show and my interviews and being an advocate for so many years, that you're going to get the stats from whatever department is looking at those specific stats. Let's say, for example, and I'll give you an overall on this. I court watch across the nation, and I interview both fathers and mothers, and both are being equally abused. Trust me when I tell you that. If you watch my shows, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about an outpouring in the thousands. Court watching, I've exposed it. Level 3 sex offenders with children. The judges know very clearly that they're handing them over to level 3 sex offenders because you can't hide that. That's public knowledge, and it's been brought into court as evidence. Okay. Now I am all for mothers that are being protected against domestic violence in children, and I see it every day in the hundreds of thousands. Mothers are losing custody. Fathers are losing custody too. What I'm seeing, and what I'm trying to get everybody to really understand, is that criminals are getting children, not protective parents. And yes, mothers are losing children more than I've ever seen in the history of time. That is happening. I started out seeing that pattern of abuse against mothers. But now coming to learn that there's a severe pattern of abuse against fathers. And what I'm seeing when I do my interviews, and we do background checks, so we know. We look at evidence. We don't do what the judges do. We actually look at evidence. We find out about their backgrounds. So they get on my show. Trust me, they have a good background. Here's the thing. So that's what I'm trying to say is it's like there's a pattern, and what happens is one group will say one thing, one group will see another, till you start to actually look at the whole mass. It's almost like if the news reports something as the crowd is leaving, you'll say nobody showed up at that event. But then legitimate news will actually show that there's millions of people at the event, and they're actually showing the event while it's actually happening. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, and I also agree very much with Barry Goldstein. I agree very much with the pattern of abuse that happens to domestic violence survivors, women, because his target is showing about what's happening to women and mothers and children who are, in fact, losing custody 100% for reporting real evidence of abuse. Okay, they're being victimized for the 2% that are lying, big time. But that's happening in a subcategory. So that message, if it's not told properly, could say all dads are abusers, all dads, blah 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 blah. So I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say here. But those are subcategories of what's happening. But on an overall, I'm seeing millions of parents across our nation pissed off and angry, not disgruntled. Okay, normal reaction of anger, normal, because their children are being abused by a court of judges that are violating all of our laws across our country. Clearly, I have an expert coming on tonight on our show, or well, not our show, actually, our private core group, which isn't so private anymore, that's going to tell us just exactly our rights are violated, and all these judges actually belong in jail according to our laws. Imagine that. And they've been getting away with this for so long. So, you know, I mean, I know I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, because you're on the right side of justice. But you know, this is what's happening. This is horribly barbaric. And I think if mothers and fathers continue to fight each other, they can't fight the system. I think that's a good tactic that the devil would use. That the devil would use, is to keep the ones apart that should be together fighting. And now that's what we're doing. We're building our army together. We're bridging that gap, and we're fighting against the system that has failed us and failed our children everywhere. What do you take on that? What do you take with that?
Oh, well, I agree. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I mean, my cases are more of
you're working with the moms.
You know, that's correct. More the moms. I mean, we do represent dads too in these cases, and we have a case right now representing a protective father who's trying to keep his kid out of a very bad situation with the mother. Yeah. But I am in the case where my cases, generally, I don't get, fortunately, convicted sex offenders on the other side. I know of these cases. I've seen them. I've advised on them. But I know that they're out there. I know that I haven't seen personally, not to the level you're describing, but I have seen expert witnesses who recognize the abusiveness of a father.
Yes.
And acknowledge all of it. But say that this mom's crazy behavior is so much worse and is so much more important than saving the child to be with the admitted abusive father than it is with the so-called crazy mom, who was not crazy. And I've seen that with my own eyes with expert witnesses. So I know that happens. Right, and it's happening. It's happening every day. I see it too. Where I'm actually I hate to use the word victim, but I'm actually a victim of it just because I'm a very outspoken advocate. I know what this particular judge in our county did, what he thinks he's going to get away with, but he certainly isn't. But retaliated, and my case has been, in the past 8 months that my child has been taken from me, stolen, traumatized. My case has been proven over and over again because of what's happened, which we'll get into, which the whole world will see very, very soon. So I know it happens. I'm very clear to what's happening, and I see what's happening. And what is their I guess what I want to ask is, what is their logical way of thinking that even if a mother was lying, let's pretend, because everybody shows evidence, which evidence should be presented into court and honored and accepted and taken. But let's just say she actually lied. Is that a reason to completely strip a mother of her children completely in 20 seconds and ruin a child's life? And then now you've just taken the doctor that the child's always had away from the child. You don't know anything about the medical background. You don't know anything about anything. You've just literally,
bombarded all laws, and you have now violently hurt a child and a mother, or a child and a father. But in these particular cases where there is domestic violence and they've just stripped the rights that quickly within seconds without any, I mean, to me, it's almost like a drunk driver. A judge is a drunk driver. That's how I see them. They're wearing a robe and suddenly they're drunk behind the wheel of a car and they just make a decision to drive and they just hit whoever they hit that's in their way. So that's the same analogy I see with these judges and how they're making these decisions. You know, they're just haphazard.
We just thankfully had a case just last week overturned by our Court of Appeals in Maryland, which is our highest court, which is our equivalent of the Supreme Court in Maryland. And at the oral argument, the other side, they actually taken the child away. In this instance, the father was abusive, and at the morning of the trial, stood up and said, "I'm unfit to be the father, but the parent to have custody. But I think my parents should have custody." So the whole thing turned into a fight between the abuser's parents, the grandparents, versus our client, the mother,
right?
Which should never have been the case. It should not have happened. And as a practical matter, I mean, just think about it. Most grandparents are retired with more money than their single working mom, at least on paper, would make much better custodians of a child, at least in theory, because they had more time and money and then they devote the child. But we don't work that way in this country. It shouldn't work that way.
Right.
So they make a long story short, they awarded custody to the grandparents, and we took it all the way up to the highest court. We lost the mid-level appellate court and went to the highest court, and the other lawyers said, well, it's a totality of the circumstances that led to her losing the child. And they asked, well, okay, totality of circumstances are made up of circumstances. Give me some examples. And one of the first things he said was, well, the mother lied in a trial about past marijuana use, which, by the way, has been criminalized in Maryland. And to her credit, the chief judge smiled for a moment and said, if we took kids away from every parent who lied in court, there'd be a lot of parentless children.
There'd be nobody left. Right.
Exactly. That's not a sufficient reason.
It's nowhere near a sufficient reason. Nowhere near a sufficient reason. It's highly negligent.
And I agree with your frustration that, you know, even if my client did lie about this matter, then let's look at what's the message to the child, which would still be the better parent in this case. But that would be disregarded. It's like they would lose by default to the other parent because they're believed to be a liar, in which most cases they're not even lying.
Right, absolutely.
But again, assuming, as you said, they are lying, that shouldn't be a sufficient reason. And that is a big part of the problem.
Well, I mean, I do want to say one thing, though. Like, when there is a mother or a father that lies about something so severe as lying and saying somebody sexually abused a child, I think that they should be highly held accountable for that, because you've just ruined someone's life. But in that case, obviously, you know, that's that. But the ones that are suffering, like I said, and the emphasis is on the ones that are being abused are the ones that are suffering. The ones that are being re-victimized, the ones that they're falsifying records. Then you got we call it child predator services. They're going in there, they're ignoring every case of genuine abuse. They ignore it. But then they find something that somebody's dog pooped on the floor. They just happened to get there when the dog pooped on the floor. They turned that into there was dog poop all over the house and the house stunk. When it wasn't even true. You know, they turned it. So, you know.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I
have the same reaction with child protective services. I found I have seen some excellent ones, some very good ones who've done their jobs outstandingly, but too often my reaction to the folks that I've dealt with child protective services is they wildly underreact or wildly overreact.
Yeah, and the same thing, we're seeing that with our police lately too, where they overreact and then they cause murder and death, or they underreact, and I don't understand that. I can't agree with that more. I can't even agree with that more.
I don't understand it either. I've had pictures I could show you where of incredible bruising on a child where the father admitted to hitting him with a large spatula used on your outdoor grill, and they said that's not abuse. I mean, I was stunned when Child Protective Services in one of our counties here actually said that. But yet, when you get a child who the mother takes to the hospital one too many times because she thinks the child is sexually abused, they go ballistic and say, you're abusing this child by taking them to a doctor.
We have that here too. New York, I have to tell you, because I'm dealing with all the states, and New York, there's some states where it's just abruptly abusing fathers, and New York happens to be abruptly abusing mothers. So the thing is, here in New York, what's happening is, and we have one particular highlighted judge that the county, well, that we've got a lot of people, he's under severe scrutiny. But forensic medical evidence of sex abuse to a child, I know the case very, very well. High abuse to the mother. They keep putting orders of protection on her without even, first of all, never filed correctly in the first place, no family offense ever whatsoever, and keep just reiterating the order of protection against this poor mother. Meanwhile, when you look at the medical forensic, 4 different medical doctors documenting the sex abuse to the child, only one in the care of the father who, get this one, hold on to your seat, who was dishonorably discharged from the military for pedophilia and looking at child porn.
Oh my gosh.
He's got access to the child, but she has 0. How do you like that?
Yeah.
I mean,
no, it's terrible. I have noticed something about, I've had one New York case I was involved with that had ties to Maryland that was not quite as bad as the one you described, but was very similar, where the mother hasn't seen the children in almost 7 years now, and they would slap on 2-year protective orders without a hearing. I mean, just no access to the children whatsoever. Held her in contempt because she was allowed to go to a parent-teacher school night with other kids being there, and she wrote the note, hi, blank, the child's name, Mommy loves you, on a sticky note and left to the child's desk, and they held her in contempt and fined her $8,000 for doing that.
It's absolutely barbaric.
Father has an adjudicated history of domestic violence and cocaine use convictions and legal steroid use convictions, and none of that seemed to matter. The mother was allegedly abusing prescription drugs, which was open to debate, but was somehow so much worse than the father's actual criminal convictions for cocaine and steroids.
Right.
Also out of New York. So New York is one of those states that has some very weird quirks in the law that most states would not allow.
We found out that the quirks are not in the law. They just tried to convince you that they were. We found out that they're violating the law big time here in New York, but it kind of has a lot of networking involved. But we'll get into that one in another time. But
New York, I understand, has 2 quirks that are very interesting. One, the judges don't have to have law degrees, and 2, judges are allowed to practice law. At least the part-time judges are allowed to practice law as long as they don't practice it in front of their own court. So in Maryland, we have what are called district courts, which are the lowest courts, circuit courts, which are the higher trial court. It'd be like a district judge in Maryland trying a case across the street at the circuit courthouse. I mean, in front of other judges with whom he's having lunch, and they're all judges, they're just different courtrooms or different courthouses. It's ridiculous. That should never be allowed, but New York does allow it.
Wow. I'm going to have a couple questions, if you don't mind. They're sending them in, and I need you guys, if you're going to do a question, do one now, because when the system moves, I can't read it while on the air. So if you guys want to ask Paul any questions, just kind of reinstate it and make it simple, leaving names out. They're coming in.
Okay.
I've never done one on the phone like this before, so it's a little different than we're used to, but just, let's see.
Now, you're in New York right now?
I'm in New York, but I mean, we've got people from all over the nation. Actually, we have a Canadian chapter now, too, and so I took movies of my son naked and destroyed them upon discovery. The prosecutor admitted that the father, in the eyes of the court, penetrated my son, and she lost custody, and they took the son away from her until he was 18. It's not really a question, but it's a horrible, horrible statement. You know, we can't say that. We can't really. You know, when you see these things and you have the interviews and so on, you cannot say that these judges are making these decisions for any kind of legal reasons. This is actually severe mental insanity that they would make decisions like this. There's something much deeper to their reasons why they would sit in these positions and do these horrible crimes to humanity like this. You know?
Yeah, and those are awesome cases. We had one, unfortunately, too. We had a spoliation of evidence case where a pubic hair was found in the young girl, prepubescent girl's vagina, and Child Protective Services instructed the hospital to destroy it, which is just, to me, is, you know, if not criminal, certainly ought to have people losing their jobs. And mother has still not had custody of that child back, claiming she made everything up, despite the fact that there was compelling evidence that was destroyed at the instructions of the state, which just is absolutely mind-blowing to me.
It's absolutely incredibly crazy how they're not all in jail already. Here's one from Leslie. Leslie said she's wanted to reach out to you. So does Paul look at any federal cases from Minnesota? Big one here with my ex's national company looking for federal help. Now, before I even have you answer that, Minnesota is absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific. I mean, I can't even tell you, we have taken on a pattern of abuses. Now that state is targeting mothers. And I have clear-cut evidence that of bruises all over children that they ignore completely. And then they just, oh my God, what they're doing to these mothers is absolutely barbaric. But to answer her question, I'll repeat it again. Does Paul look at any federal cases from Minnesota? Big one here with my ex's national company looking for federal help.
I'm not aware of any. Getting into federal court on these cases is extremely difficult. We've kind of batted around theories ourselves. I mean, there are a few theories to get in there. We've never had a case with the right fact pattern to get into federal court. I'm curious. She could reach us through our website. Our contact information is there at childjusticeincorporated.org. But I'm curious what case she has in federal court and how it got into federal court.
I'm going to put it, it's Child Justice. I'm going to put it up for everybody. Child Justice, what did you say? Incorporated.org?
Let me go to
okay. We're just going to give you guys the right one.
Around with our website. And I'll make sure I'm getting it right here on Thursday. Okay, here we go. First of all, you put Child Justice Incorporated in, it'll come up.
Okay, he said just put Child Justice Incorporated in Google and it will come up to reach out to them.
Washington, D.C. Washington.
Child-justice.org. Child-justice.org. Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Let's see.
And also to answer your question, and I have no direct experience with Minnesota cases, and I'm sorry to hear she's going through that, and I'm sorry to hear that they're one of the bad states. It seems like all 50 of them are, though, unfortunately.
Well, just to let everybody know here, and also you, Paul, we do have a very intensive core meeting this evening. I did post the link on my page. It's all over my page for people to get on and to listen to the experts that we have that'll be on tonight and our strategic plan. I'm very happy to know with one of the specific experts that is going to be on that they are violating all our laws. What they're doing is criminal. And they explained, and I'm not going to get into it because I'm not the expert here, but they are. They explained that it is criminal in every single state because of our federal laws. And they're going to get into that with us tonight. And then there's a way that we're going to do this. See, this is what I'm doing. I'm making it a national effort. And by making it a national effort, we are able to sue the crap out of them and also make sure that these judges will be sitting in jail where they belong for the crimes to these children and the crimes to these parents. And they are crimes. And I have been, and behind the scenes, I have been speaking to many an expert regarding our laws in our country that they have indeed violated. And I am absolutely confident that tonight everybody's going to know clearly that these judges not just belong in jail because we say so, they belong in jail according to our laws. So that's a very happy about what we're about to do tonight. But I really appreciate having you on today. What were you guys? I'm sorry.
Can I ask, are you able to say who the expert is?
I will on the call this evening. I don't want to do that without permission.
No problem.
But we do have several. We do have several, but one in particular that's going to be giving us just a little appetizer tonight, and then we're going to do like about an hour interview, or possibly longer. That I will put out there. Yeah, the thing is that I think what's happening, and I'm really proud to see parents that are. I mean, you just need to get on Facebook. You wouldn't believe your eyes. The Army is actually gargantuan in size, and the parents have had enough. They're tired of being called disgruntled. They're tired of being called mentally ill. They're tired of being told that they don't have rights when they do. And now that they realize that we are as huge as we are, you know, finally, they're realizing that there's something even more greater than hope. There's faith that this is going to happen and it is going to take place. We do have the Million Parent March that's coming up on September 19th. Encourage everybody to go to that for just even for the mere fact that national media will be there, because there's such an explosion of parents that are going. But parents are no longer asking for help at this point, because the house has been on fire for far too long, and it's time that we have to actually put this fire out. It's endangering the welfare of our entire country. That's how bad this is. When you destroy the family like this, you do not have a country any longer, because you've destroyed the next generations. And, you know, one of the things you said that I agree with, Paul, is, you know, the damages to parents from post-traumatic stress disorder and what has happened to all these parents. And my God, if this is what's happening to parents, we're not resilient to this. So why would our children be resilient to this? How dare they say our children are resilient, poo-poo it away with that term. That's horrible when I hear that. They're not resilient. Our kids are not resilient. They need the healing, nurturing, and love from us to be returned to us so that they may have a fighting chance to heal.
Right. I mean, the current science is now showing on these ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that it actually rewires their brains when they're young enough and they're exposed to enough. And there's no threshold for this. We don't, you know, for some children they could be exposed to 10 horrible events, and if they have enough of an otherwise nurturing environment, they'll be okay. For some children, if they're exposed to one,
right,
they're going to have great problems when they get older. So we don't know the there is no real threshold level. We don't know the threshold of an individual child until it's too late.
Right.
So it really is literally rewiring these young brains as they're growing,
right,
being exposed to either domestic violence or being victimized themselves, or even if they are not witnessing the violence that's happening while they're asleep, if it's domestic violence, when they're losing a parent, a more nurturing, protective parent, and then that parent's supposed to supervise visitation, and then they're only seeing them, you know, in a sterile courtroom environment, you know, the basement room of the courthouse or wherever the supervision happens. You know, that's damaging, that's traumatic itself. That is an adverse childhood event. That itself is going to wire their brains.
Absolutely. No question.
You know, so to call children resilient is really it's very misleading, because, again, as one of the experts told me, resilience does not mean uninjured.
Right.
Just because they're able to carry on their day-to-day lives seemingly does not mean they haven't been severely injured.
Well, I have a scientific answer for that, because I'm not really, I'm being facetious, but really what that is, that's a cowardice answer by a judge. That's a complete and total and utter coward to not face the fact that they have done something so unconscionable and so harmful to our children that they're going to use the word that they're resilient, just to say that their conscience doesn't affect them as seriously as the damages that they've caused this child and family. Children that they don't love, when they sit in their position on that throne, giving these orders and just signing a pen, you know, taking a pen and signing their name to something, to me is so barbaric and so actually dehumanizing. I don't even know how they sleep at night to do the things that they do and to make these decisions, especially when they do it in the form of retaliation. I mean, you know, if that's not criminal, I don't know what is, because isn't a judge supposed to be, and you know this, isn't a judge supposed to be even-keeled and have a manner of, you know, like an unbiased, peaceful manner? I've seen these judges go off like Satan in courtrooms.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they're all too human. That's the problem. It's you know, it's hard to when a judge gets angry, it's hard to believe that they're not being biased. I mean, you know, just like everyone else, you know, they're going to take their anger out on somebody if they can. But unfortunately, unlike most of us, they have a lot of power over people's lives and can destroy a life, or certainly throw a hand grenade into a family environment by letting their anger lead to, as you describe it correctly, as retaliation.
Yeah.
You know, too often in these cases, we come in late in these cases, and a lot of damage has been done by trial attorneys.
Right.
Are in front of the state judges all the time, and certain evidence was brought in, and it's too late to bring it in now. There's nothing we can do an appeal because it was brought in. And my question is, well, why didn't your lawyer introduce this evidence? And the lawyer said, well, my lawyer said he didn't want to risk making the judge mad.
Yeah, and that should never be that, and that should never even be thought of. That shouldn't even be a thought it should never even be a thought in court at all. Making the judge mad, that right there. So why don't judges have mental health evaluations and drug testing randomly? That's something that I think would be, I mean, it's only right because we're a country of accountability. So now if the one that's supposed to be holding you accountable isn't accountable to anybody, how good is that? I mean, you know.
No, it's a problem. I mean, the deference that judges are given on appeals is also a big problem. And part of it, you know, you understand in a dry legal sense, you understand that the appellate courts are trying to take the position that we're not there, we're not able to judge credibility of witnesses. But the deference I think given to trial courts, particularly these custody cases, is far too strong. Mm-hmm. That evidence should be much more heavily reviewed on appeal about what should and shouldn't come in. Particularly, I mean, you know, these cases they're almost like criminal cases, and that you should have stronger constitutional rights. But in theory, you do as a parent have these constitutional rights, right. But they're ignored more in the breach than they are in observation.
That's the answer.
We're trying, actually, in Maryland, we're trying to change the law to get it, among other things, that a criminal defendant has a right to a free transcript for an appeal, a constitutional right. We're trying to get that in Maryland, that a custody case, a parent who loses custody or otherwise loses child access, has that same right, because the appellate costs, even if you find a free attorney, you know, you're looking at $5, $10, $15, $20,000, depending on what the trial is, just for the transcript. Right. And most parents can't afford that, and you cannot have it appealed on a transcript. Right. So we're trying to get the courts to accept the position that a parent has the right to a free transcript on appeal. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the cases we're trying to work up to the system to get an appellate court to issue that ruling.
Well, I really thank you. Can you give anybody, or would you like to just tell the audience anything about any positive cases that you've had, or is that not even an answer anymore?
No, sure. I mean, we just this month we had one where, as I said, we overturned it where the grandparents, the parents of an abuser, got custody over the mother, and then the first thing they did when they got custody was limit the mother's access, no overnight something, and an abusive parent, you know, the one thing they want to do is they want to continue to victimize their victim, and they use the kids, of course, to victimize them. And the best way to damage and protect a parent is take away their kid.
That's right.
Even if it means for this abusive parent, even if it means this abusive parent not getting custody, as long as she's not getting custody, I don't care. That's right. So we were afraid this was a blueprint that the lower court was giving for the abusive parents to take away the kids, to have their own parents in to come and get custody and claim that the mother's also unfit, as long as the father admits that he's unfit, or the abusive parent admits that he's unfit. And we were glad to get it overturned. Now they didn't put an absolute bar on this from happening, which is fine, because there are cases where grandparents probably ought to have custody over both parents. You know, when you truly have two unfit parents who are living in a proverbial little mess den.
Yes.
But this is not what we're talking about that happened in this case. And we were quite pleased that we got the court to see it the way we did, and we reversed custody back to the mother. So we do have some good news. I mean, the best advice I can give the lawyers out there on these cases is the two things that I tell the lawyers who are taking these cases as they do is one is do your best to keep the system honest, meaning object to objectionable evidence, fight objectionable evidence. Do not let junk science testimony come in from someone who's credentialed but is not truly giving an expert opinion. It was just an expert who's just giving his personal opinion. Keep that out.
I like that.
Take that deposition. Find out the basis of his or her opinions. Find out there's no science. File that motion in limine to keep it out. Don't be afraid of angering the judges. You know, if you have key evidence, you bring it in. There's ways to bring in evidence that's uncomfortable without making a judge angry. There's ways to object to evidence knowing you know you're going to lose without angering the judge. You can stand up and say, Your Honor, for the record, I continue to object to this line of questioning, and knowing you're going to have your objection overruled. But the second thing is preserving the record. So if you're keeping the system honest and you're preserving the record, you're trying to get an evidence that should come in, you're objecting evidence that shouldn't come in, you have a decent shot on an appeal, which granted can take years and is often a problem. But that is one of the biggest problems we see in our organization is where mothers come to us after they've lost their kids, and we look at the record and the trial lawyers just did an awful job.
Yeah.
Awful job
Yeah.
Keeping the system honest, letting in testimony evidence that never should have come in, not objecting to it.
Right.
Withholding their own key evidence that should have come in, not preserving objections. I mean, so for the lawyers out there, that's my two strongest pieces of advice. Really fight to keep the system honest through the rules of evidence and preserve the record for a possible appeal.
See,
if you do those two things, you'll often find you'll win the case at the same time.
Yeah. And you know, the problem with keeping the system honest, and I could be looking through the eyes of New York, so forgive me, but the problem with keeping the system honest is it's kind of hard to keep liars honest when the judges are liars, and the judges really are so egotistical. And like you said, I mean, when it comes down to, and I'm glad that it is working in some places, and that is great, and that's how our justice system should work. But in a lot of these courts, I mean, like if we have to worry about angering the judge, he shouldn't be a judge. He shouldn't be a judge. I mean, you know, he should be looking at the perspective of this is a family. When they first went in there, they didn't come in orange shoots and they didn't come with, you know, shackles on. They came in as parents, and they should be treated as such, and they should be given the mutual respect. And then there should be a finding out about what's going on with these parents, and then truly what is in the best interest of children. Even when you have an abusive parent, which obviously I'm not for, there needs to be safeguards for the child, and they do not honor that or respect that in any way, shape, or form, not at all. I mean, you know, the whole system is such a mess that I don't even understand where reform would ever even come into this system, personally, because I don't know how you reform something that is just this barbarically messed up, you know? So, and the damages and the years worth of damages that they've done to families, I think the numbers are actually showing that everybody is beyond tired of it at this point, you know.
It's a serious problem, and when you go to a lot of the legal conventions, the State Bar Association meetings and others, the unfortunate comments you hear is the conventional wisdom is so against us, so awful.
Yeah.
You'll hear them talk about parental alienation syndrome, which is junk science, and you'll hear them talk about the same experts that you know are quacks and who get away with murder in the courtroom and how wonderful they are and everything. And it's sickening. It's very unfortunate.
See,
we deal with it a lot.
I do understand, and we did look it all up, and we did research the junk science part of the fact that the syndrome is not real. The syndrome alienation is not real, okay? But the truth is that judges are alienating parents from children and children from parents. So the science of that is the ACEs study, the damages that it's doing to these children for alienating the children. So the real alienators are the judges. That's the real alienators. That's the ones that are actually causing the extensive harm to children and families. You know, so it's like I always say, we have to take these words and we have to define them as to what they really mean. Because when you hear best interest of child, a normal thinking person is going to say, oh, best interest of child, sure, we're going to do what's in the best interest. Obviously, being around a drug addict is in the best interest, but the judges don't see it that way. Or obviously, if a child's being sexually penetrated by somebody, even if it's another child, okay, or some way touching a child in some inappropriate manner, the judges ignore it. So those are certainly not in the best interest of a child. Staking the child from a protective, loving mother never is good, or a protective, loving father, like I have interviewed as well. Completely taking them out of the child's life, never to look back, is absolutely it's just so barbaric. It's so criminal.
It's inhuman too often what we see happening, and the excuses are paper thin too often. I just as a terminology, I don't see what the judge is doing as alienation in the sense that it's used as junk science. I mean,
they're using
I understand the words are similar, but you're taking them away from the child. But the claim that first of all, getting at alienation, no one disputes that the parents, in the worst case, not all of them, but often, even many ones will badmouth the parent. I mean, anyone who thinks that's not happening is crazy. But the idea that the parents are this syndrome out there, this horrible problem that these moms especially are able to, sometimes without even using words, subconscious actions, rolling their eyes or something, are able to completely turn a child off of the other parent.
Yes.
Especially when there's evidence of abuse by that other parent, is just ridiculous. There's a reason why the child doesn't want to go with the father. Maybe because the father put a cigarette out in the kid's forehead last visit. That might have something to do with a little bit more than the fact that the mom rolled her eyes when dad called to have his nightly call with the child.
Right,
right. Too often are not seeing it that way. I've had the number of times I've had where teenage children who are physically larger than their mothers won't get in the car to go to their visits when the judges threaten to put the mom to jail. She doesn't go to the visit. It's crazy.
What about the wackadoodle judge? What was her name? That wackadoodle that ordered the children to jail or to like juvenile jail or something, and they didn't even give her a slap on the wrist. I mean, she's severely mentally ill. There's something mentally ill about that woman. I mean, there's no question.
The lawyers who litigated that case are Montgomery Myers, Greg Jacob, and Dave Doyle are phenomenal lawyers, and they're associated with child justice. They do a lot of pro bono cases with us, so we were very, very familiar with that case. And the lawyers who litigated it for the mother's side did a phenomenal job. I don't know if you know, but the mom has custody of the children.
Oh, now. Praise God! So there's a good one, guys. There's a good one.
The judge was sanctioned by the appellate court, but it was unfortunately a slap on the wrist.
It was a slap on the wrist.
Removed from the bench, in my view.
She should be removed from society, as far as I'm concerned. She should be in jail for what she did.
She certainly should be removed from the bench. She certainly does not have the temperament of someone who belongs to the bench. I'm not hesitant to say that. That she didn't get a much higher sanction than what she received. They're being
far too lenient on these judges, which we're definitely going to be making sure that does not continue. We will make sure, because we the people are much larger, and it is our sovereign right to make sure that this stops. And it's my job to make sure everybody continues to realize what power we actually do have, because we've been abused for far too long. And the thing is that any abuser will do exactly what judges are doing. And I'm not speaking for you, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. Judges are an abuser. Not all, but the majority that I've seen are absolute abusers. They are no better than a domestic violence abuser. Actually, I want to say that they're worse, because they're being paid to abuse us. And that is barbaric. And the fact that they are intimidating people, giving them gag orders, giving them false orders of protection, not protecting, they are using their position that was given by us to them to hold justice and to protect us and to protect our children as some kind of a freak show that they call family court. So, that we have no other choice than to overturn this corruption. It has to be overturned for the sake of our families. And I so appreciate you. Again, if anybody would like to get a hold of Paul, go to, what was it again? Child-Justice Incorporated. .org. Child-justice.org. And let them know about your cases. And again, tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have a very, very major core meeting. And I'm very excited about it. And so we really appreciate you. You're getting lots of hearts and love, and angry faces are not against you. They're against the stuff that we're talking about.
Well, I appreciate all you're doing for us. Keep up the good work.
You're welcome.
Let us know what we can do to help.
Oh, well, we appreciate it, and you may be getting an overload of calls now. So you're going to have your work cut out.
I hope we can advise people. I hope they understand we generally can't take cases further from where we're at, but we're always willing to give some advice and help guide people through this awful process.
That's absolutely wonderful, and this also encourages people, because I do interview lawyers, I interview doctors, I interview law enforcement, I interview, I actually have some judges that we haven't had them out yet, but there are good people. There are lots of good people. Matter of fact, there's a lot more than there aren't. So that's part of what we do here. So
there's some hope for us all then.
Thank you so much, and you're very appreciated.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great day. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry that it was a little haphazard like this. I'm going to have a lot of editing on this one. I've got a crazy dog right here right now too. That's she's biting my arm. But that was very informative, and I'm really happy and that we've gotten to get that interview out. Paul's actually a wonderful attorney, and there's many more like him. Tonight you're going to get to hear some more great truths about how much power we really do have, and the fact that we need to hold these judges accountable, and it's up to us to do so. I know we've all had it. It's just absolutely barbaric what's been happening to our families, what's been happening to our children nationwide. And that's why we are, I mean, I'm just so happy. I mean, I'm looking at Canada now, and all of you, there's just so many of you. I'm watching all these, I post other organizations and coalitions, that everybody is just really, really motivated now, really moving forward. I like the fact that I'm seeing people not be afraid to speak out, because that's what abusers do to you. They want to shut you up, and that's part of the abuse of what they're doing. It's barbaric. It's absolutely barbaric. It's criminal. It's utterly criminal. And they have to be held accountable, because judges are actually held at a higher accountability than us. It's people in law enforcement. When you wear a badge, you're held at a higher accountability. You've taken oaths. We didn't take oaths, and yet we're honoring an oath. You know, we're internally honoring an oath according to our conscience. But, you know, so it's happening, folks. And so tonight, please, be sure to get the link. It's on several videos. It's all over my Facebook page to get on. I'm hoping to fit as many of you as I can. I am limited to the amount I can fit. So it is first come, first serve. It's just like when we did Judging the Judges, I was very limited. Even some of my own core people couldn't get in. So they were unable to speak, but that is the way it is. But I do believe that we're definitely making great strides, connecting a lot of amazing people, a lot of brilliant people, a lot of very knowledgeable people about our laws and so on and so forth. Our Constitution is being brought up all the time, and I have experts that can cite law off the top of their head because they've been doing this for so long. You know, and us joining together, this is why this is so urgently important that we bind together. Even if you have something that you don't like about somebody, just like them for this cause until the cause is over. You know, like that's just an act of wisdom. Sometimes you don't like who goes into battle with you, but you still have to get each other's back. No man left behind. Okay, because this is too serious to worry about not liking something about somebody. And if somebody has a character trait that's not perfect, it is what it is. It may be a gift in some area that will work for something else, but this is for the sake of our children and our rights as parents. So thank you guys for watching. I'm sorry if I couldn't get all your questions answered, but you can get a hold of Paul and get a hold of those that are there. They said they have a lot of pro bono too. So that's just another resource for you guys. Okay, thank you so much, and we'll see you at 8 p.m. Thank you.